morning, everyone. Be'ezrat Hashem, Mincha today is going to be 7 p.m. Today is the 38th day of the Omer, which is 5 weeks and 3 days. Was asked yesterday as we discussed watches, and we said how watch is not considered to be in the category of a kli shemelachto le'isur. Rather, it is a kli shemelachto le'eteh, which means it's permitted to be moved around for the protection of the object or from one place to another place. As long as it's for any purpose whatsoever, it would be permitted to be moved around. And we said that is true by a wristwatch and as well a watch that is hanged, a watch that you put on the wall, like a clock. The question is, what about these new watches, the iWatches, the watches that you put on your wrist that are essentially iPhones on the wrist? So interestingly, Rav Dahan many years ago talked about the precursor to the iWatches, and that was these very simple box watches, which was a clock and also a calculator. You were able to do 4 times 4, equal 16. Everybody was excited about it. Those watches Rav Dahan discussed, and the question was, are you allowed to wear them on Shabbat? And Rav Dahan said, you're allowed to wear it on Shabbat. The primary purpose was the watch. The calculator obviously was not allowed to be used on Shabbat, but there was no concern. We don't invent a concern that you might come to use the calculator on Shabbat. Since it's a secondary feature, it was permitted. Chacham Ovadia said it's mutar to wear such a watch on Shabbat. It's considered kli shemelachto le'etel. Question is, would that extend to today's watches? Because today's watches are essentially iPhones on your wrist, and they have text messaging, they have calling abilities, and they have a very high level of sophistication. It just happens to also be a watch, but that's really a secondary purpose. That's not the primary purpose of these entities. I'm not going to get into all the technical things about when settings, and you can put it on a setting that it ends up turning on. Let's assume the watch is in a stable position from beginning to end, and you're not turning on any lights, you're not turning on any other things. Would this watch be permitted to be used on Shabbat or not? It would seem to me that according to Chacham Ovadia, it still would not be allowed to use on Shabbat because of the fact that it's really just not a watch, it's really just a phone that you put on your wrist. And therefore, even if on a technical level you could make a distinction and you could say, Halacha lema'aseh, people should not wear these watches on Shabbat. They should avoid wearing them. They could wear instead their fancy Rolexes. That's a nice thing to wear on Shabbat, and leave out the iWatches off of themselves, because it does seem like it would have the status of Muktze, as its primary features are things that are asur to do on Shabbat. So yes, it is true that in terms of the concern that I might come to use it, we can't make such a decree in our times. We're not entitled to make such decrees. But nevertheless, if the primary focus and purpose of it is for something that is asur, so then it becomes a kli shemelachto le'isur, and then it becomes something that is muktze to handle and to move around. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen.